Welcome back to another edition of the B4evaKool Podcast. My name is Rex45, and this evening we have Wei Lin on the show. Welcome to the show. How you doing today?
Hey, I'm good.
Nice. Glad to hear it. Let's jump in. Let's talk about how you got into riding and what it's been like. I know some folks that I've talked to in the past. They either got in really young because one of their parents or both their parents rode or something like that. For myself, it was much later in life and so forth. So, what's your story? How did you get into bikes and what was the curiosity?
Oh man. Probably similar to you. So I didn't get into it until way later in life. Actually I only started riding during COVID actually.
Oh, wow, okay.
Uh, yeah. Yeah. I know. My story's kind of weird. And the more I talk about it, the more I'm like, you're crazy. What's wrong with you?
There's nothing crazy about it. I mean, I think I was like 42 when I started, so nothing crazy. It's just, but yeah. So okay. So what was the thing that the pandemic happened, and were you looking at bikes before then? Were you thinking about it and just never done anything? Did you ride on bikes or rode other people's bike or anything like that, or you just kind of, pandemic happened and it was just like, all right, I'm going to do something?
So it was like a mixture of just kind of everything coming together. So I honestly, I didn't even have a driver's license. So I'm a city girl. I always lived in the city. All my boyfriends used to drive me around. Uber happened. And my parents were just like never super supportive of me, like doing anything like masculine or things like that.
Okay.
I come from a very traditional background. So like even pre-tiger moms, like, more so like the firstborn son getting all the attention kind
Right.
of like
Right.
so when COVID happened, I got laid off and I just had all this time. And I was like, wow, I could do whatever I want. Now I have time to go and try new things that I didn't have time to before. So I actually saw one of my friends, him and a bunch of other friends went and got their licenses, their motorcycle licenses. And I was like, oh, how did you do this? So he kind of told me about the MSF courses and things like that. So I was just like, I'm going to go do that. So I took Ubers to get my MSF course because I didn't have a car. So I was like taking Ubers in the morning to my MSF course. And it was really great because they supply all the bikes and helmets and everything.
Right.
So I was able to get it that way. And then once that happened, I was like, wow, okay, I passed. I got my license in the mail, which was crazy because it was like my only license. I didn't have anything
Yeah,
else. It just said Emma.
I was going to ask. I was like, so you had a motorcycle license only, and so I assume you did the learner's permit for the motorcycle, and there was no requirement. I guess there's no requirement for you to have a driver's license or car driving license.
Well, funny enough, you had to have a driver's permit, but you didn't have to have a driver's license. So I had to study and get my driver's permit to get my motorcycle's permit to get my motorcycle license. So I did that at least. So I had a driver's permit.
Okay. Thanks for clearing that up because I was like, yeah, that's interesting. Okay, and then let's how was the course overall? For other people trying to think about taking that course, did you guess about 4 years you've been riding, give or take. Did you now do you look back and go, that was super informative?
Yeah, definitely super informative. I mean, it was super basic, of course, like it doesn't necessarily teach you anything about real riding. I mean, you never get past like second gear really anyways.
Right.
So, like it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, you definitely have to ride on the road and you kind of like fuck up and drop your
Right.
bike and
Yep.
things like that. But it was good because I didn't understand shifting, like, so they taught me how to shift, what neutral was, using the brakes, things like that. So that was definitely helpful because I just didn't have any understanding of that whatsoever.
Right.
So they teach you the basics, which is great.
Nice. And did you know how to drive a car, but just didn't get your license, or you were like completely like just green, like walked up and was like, oh, at least obviously you knew how to ride a bicycle, so you had balance and stuff like that, right? But were you a little bit nervous? Were you like gung ho? What was that like? Because I remember
Yeah,
getting my license, I had my driver's license, but I remember going to take the class, and I was pretty nervous, and I felt comfortable because like I could drive standard shift, and I got the concept from driving cars and stuff for 30 years, I guess. so so yeah,
I mean, you don't know what you don't know. So
right,
I wasn't nervous because I just didn't know to be nervous, I
yeah,
guess.
okay, cool, that's what's up.
Yeah, like you don't know what you don't know until you know it.
Yeah,
I had a ton of fun. My teachers were really cool. The group I was with was really cool. It was really fun. I had a good time. Was I perfect? No. Did I pass? Yes.
nice.
And yeah, so I mean, I think honestly, I was more nervous when I took my driver's test.
Okay.
That was like way scarier, honestly. So,
Well, let's talk about that a little bit, if you don't mind. So you got your license to ride a motorcycle. Did you get a bike right away on the streets to ride? Did you get your license thinking like, okay, I'm only going to go do the track only? How did that happen? And then what was the reason for you to go get your driver's license?
so of course I've always wanted a driver's license. If not just for emergency issues, like let's say, I go off with my friend, they get hurt, who's going to drive us back, things like that. So that's always been in the back of my head. Um, as for the switch, how did everything happen? So after getting my motorcycle license, I was like, well, I got my driver's permit. I might as well finish and get my driver's license.
Right.
Like, what's the point of just having a driver's permit? So, I practiced, got good, though it was like mildly terrifying because the crazy thing about Massachusetts is you have to basically get off an exit, cross 4 lanes of traffic to get off at another exit in less than a mile.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Oh, yeah, that was like the bane of my existence in the beginning, for
Right.
sure. Now it's like a breeze. I'm like, whatever, let's
And
go.
did friends teach you, or did you go and take a class for that as well, or?
So friends taught me, thankfully, though I'm looking back, I'm like, I can't believe you trusted me with your car.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Friends, you need them.
Yeah.
Well, nice. And so, okay, so wow. So okay, so you got your driver's license, your motorcycle license. What point did you get a bike and your car, and then how did you decide to go to the track? And again, yeah, did you ride on the streets with the motorcycle?
Yeah, I did. So summer, I'd say summer. Man, I can't even remember the year. 2020, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
2020, I think, probably. I got my motorcycle license. And then, you know, I basically was super excited. I had some friends reach out and they're like, okay, let's try to take you motorcycle shopping. So I want to say, I putzed around a bit. And like that fall, I ended up buying myself like a little CB 300.
Nice.
So, I wouldn't say it was like my dream bike, but it was just one of those things where everyone's like, this is perfect for you. It's so cheap. It was like $3,000. And, I picked him up and I just had fun around town, with my first little bike. I rode with friends. And then I was lucky enough to have friends who were already into track days.
Cool.
So they actually took me to my first track day, which was a non-sport bike track day that I think like um, it's not Tony's, but
Uh,
I forget. It's another guy who runs it, but it's also in conjunction with like Tony's, which is now Cyclesmith.
right.
It's run by another guy, I think, mainly. I forget his name. I'm so bad. But it was really great. And so I took my little CB300 there and I rode and I just had a blast. And actually, I met Carrie there. And we didn't even put it together that that's where we first met until like a year or two later,
Oh, wow.
honestly. Yeah, because she was just like, that was you. And I was like, that was me. And I was like, oh, that's you. It makes sense. But yeah, so I rode my first non-sport bike track day. I had so much fun. It requires minimal gear. You just need gauntlet gloves, boots, riding pants, a riding jacket. So you don't have to have a full suit or
Gotcha.
anything
Okay.
like that.
Yep.
Yeah, so I went, did that, had a blast. And then my friends were like, okay, well, you should do the Penguin 2-day race school if you're having such a good time. And so literally a few months later, I signed up for the 2-day classic, Loudon Classic Race School.
Yeah.
And then I did that. I got my license. Had fun at the classic. And then the next month I came back and I started racing.
So, I mean, this is pretty fascinating because it's like I just hear you say having fun, and for me, my first time on the track was a little terrifying. So this is interesting. When you say was it having a non race bike track day where you could come in with 2-piece suit? It was just not as serious maybe as like going to Penguin. And was there any part of it that was scary, I guess, or is it just fun the whole time?
At one point, since that bike was a little lowered, a peg did hit the ground when I was going around the curve, and that did scare me for a split second, but I was also warned about that. So that did freak me out a little, but like I said, you don't know what you don't know. So it's just having a blast,
Nice.
Fun. I ended up getting bumped up a class that day too. So it was just fun, riding around with people and just, getting the feel of going faster than I've ever gone,
Yeah.
which
Okay.
is probably not fast, but it was fast for me,
Right. So, and like, how many miles do you think, I don't know if you remember, how many miles did you do before going to the track on the CBR? Roughly.
Not a ton, maybe 1,000.
Okay.
Well, probably less just because I got in the fall and then you can't really ride in the winter.
Right.
And so it was spring that I did the non-sport bike track day.
Right.
So, I want to say, just under 1,000, putzing around in the city, freezing my tush off.
Yeah. You gotta get heated gear. It's one thing I learned when I lived in Boston. Heated gear is the way to get the riding extended a little bit. Well, I did ride in January and February, but I had serious heated gear, socks, pants, gloves, jacket, so everything. But I was a little crazy in the beginning. So now let's talk about your experience with going to the Penguin School, the 2-day school. Did you feel, and at the end of the school, did you walk away saying, I learned so much more, or kind of the things that you were already doing just kind of rolled naturally into what the school is offering, and you just kind of kept having fun and going faster?
Yeah, it's been such an insane journey, and I've learned a lot of things the hard way, I will say. That's why I keep on saying, like, you don't know what you don't know until you know it. And when you know it, it usually hurts. So, yeah, I definitely learned a lot during Penguin Track Day. Like, all the flags, all the things that you have to know when you race. I think one of the things that I was like the most concerned of, I was just like, when do you know to stop? you know, and it's just like when the checkered flag happens,
Yeah,
but I'm
yeah.
like, well, no, if you're supposed to stop, and they're like, everyone stops.
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah. No, I feel you. The worst thing for me is going to a new track, figuring where to pit in. Like I'm always like I don't and if there's no bikes in front of me and they're not pitting, I'm always kind of like, is it here? Is it here? Is it here? So I feel you on things that may seem normal to other people. That's just like, when do we stop? And so you took the class. Did you race that weekend, or did you started racing after that?
So I didn't race that weekend just because I didn't have a race bike. I was just on that time. I actually went and bought myself a Ninja 400 to go and do school and to possibly prep as a race bike. But I didn't realize what it would take to make my bike a race bike. So when I was there, they're like, "Well, we're gonna have to safety wire. We're gonna drill. We got to do A, B, and C." And I was like, "Oh my god!"
Like that's so
And
much
then
fun.
yeah, so it was. I swear to God, it was like so lucky. I think Jacob Crossman was actually selling his
Oh,
400.
nice.
Um, so I ended up just saying like, hey, I'll take it. So next round showed up and started racing that one.
Nice, nice. So I was in Garage 4 with Ian and Jesse and Lloyd and those guys. And when I first came to Loudon, I bought Jesse's old SV race bike. It's so much easier when you get a bike that's already prepped. And since then, I've built a few race bikes, and I've broken so many drill bits trying to drill through bolts, and getting a vice to just keep the bolt from moving around. Not fun stuff. It's nice that they sell pre-drill bolts these days, and you can at least buy some and not drill through it because it's the worst. Um, nice. And Loudon was the first place you started racing.
Yes.
And what was that like in the novice class? And have you raced at other clubs or racetracks?
Yeah. I've been really lucky to have gone down. I've gone down with Niemer to Miami to that
Homestead,
track down
Homestead.
to Homestead, yeah, and race with Ezra,
Yep,
I believe.
yep.
Yeah, so I've raced with Ezra down there once. And then I've also gone down south over to New Mexico and Arizona to race with Asthma,
Okay.
another group out there.
Right, right.
And yeah, I've had a little bit of experience running at different tracks now, and getting super lost at pit out and having the corner workers look at you like, where are you going?
Oh yeah, no. One time I was at Roblin and I went the wrong way, and there was another person who was also new, and they was following me going the wrong way, so we both had to turn around. Um, going to so you've been to a few tracks. After experiencing these different tracks, and I'll say this because, like, for me, I went to Loudon from 2013 to like I believe 2019 before I went to a different track. So I had so much time at Loudon, and I think for me, I was kind of hitting a mental wall where I just kept doing the same time. So I was just so used to the same thing. And like you, I went to Homestead for the first time, and that really opened my eye and also showed me that I couldn't really go right because there's not a lot of right turns at Loudon. So it was like some learning happened to do. So after you've been to a few tracks, and you look back at it, you're like, what was that experience like? What were you thinking? And also just talking to other people, right? Because that's the cool part when you're at the track, you get to talk to people and see what they're doing. So, like, how did you feel about what you were doing stacked up against them, and just in just a relatively short period of time of because we're in 2024, so it's like under about 4 years. What's that been like?
It's definitely eye-opening for sure. I mean, my first, well, I want to say like since I started halfway through the season, in 2020, it was good. And then, of course, you crash and then you have to reassess what you're doing, and I was like, okay, well, I obviously don't know what I'm doing. So I had to completely change how I rode, because I wasn't light on my bars. And so, at some point, they were like, look, you're getting really fast. But the problem is that if you keep riding the way you are, you're just going to start crashing the faster that you get.
Right.
And so that kind of, fucked with me a
Mm-hmm.
bit, and I don't know what else also kind of got into it, but I want to say the next year, or no, like at the end of that year, I like got the yips really bad, like super, super bad. I was like stalling at the beginning of every race. It was just to the point where it was almost like hilarious, it would just be like me,
Yeah.
and I can't even, I can't put my feet on the ground, so it's like, getting the bike back into neutral, getting it on and then getting to one again, and like, meanwhile the corner workers are like,
Freaking
and I'm
out.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
fucking leave me alone, I'm gonna get there. And so, like a minute later I take off, and of course, like I'm so angry,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
all these things. And yeah, it was definitely a bit of a wreck, I'm not gonna lie.
And
So
was that after you crashed that started happening?
yeah, it was after. Well, so it's interesting because I actually got hit my first round
Mm-hmm.
racing, but it wasn't me,
Right.
obviously.
Right.
I
Right.
got
Right.
hit, things happen. But then when I crashed on my own, I think it definitely, made me think like, what am I doing wrong? And then like, reality sets in, you don't know what you don't know until you know it. And then I think it kind of just shifted my la 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 la, kind of vibe,
Right.
to their stakes, like it hurts, it's expensive,
It
people
hurts.
know you crashed, you know. So, I got the yips pretty bad, and it followed me all the way down to Homestead. Um and it was rough, for sure, but um I actually did learn a lot at Homestead. Maybe nothing to fix my yips, but I learned a couple of other hard lessons, but I also learned a couple of good lessons too, just because, Loudon is such a particular track.
Mm-hmm.
And after having ridden a couple of different tracks now, there isn't really a track like Loudon out there, So,
It's not.
it's like point and shoot, and there's nothing quite like the bowl I've ever experienced anywhere else. So Homestead was different, all the straightaways. I learned how to go super deep at Homestead.
Nice. Nice.
I'll say, I went so deep, I didn't know that you could lock up your rear wheel. So yeah, my engine couldn't catch up because I didn't realize, like, I couldn't downshift that
Oh.
fast, and to go the clutch,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
and
Yeah.
totally fucked up that race, which I could have podiumed. And trust me, my life is like, if I could podium, I will fuck it up. So it was like one of the instances.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a it's learning. I mean, and for me, I crashed in 2017. I also switched from a like twin to an inline four, but it took me like 4 years to find my pace. And it, everyone around you is giving you encouraging advice and all this stuff and all this, and you still got to be like, no, I'm finishing last again. Finishing last again. All right, year 3, right? Keep going. So yeah, I know about that mental block and also like I think for me, not think at the end for me, it was more. There was a part of it probably in the beginning. It was me, but eventually it was just the bike, and it took me because I was still new. I mean, I still am new now. I was just thinking it was me all the time, and not saying, hey, maybe it's the bike that's causing me And finally, I got the bike checked out, and definitely there was something going on. And immediately, I was, back to my pace, and so that was cool to see after 4 years. And so, yeah, going to different tracks, as you mentioned, teaches you a lot of different things when you go into just that one track, right? And so I have to ask though, how did you get over the stalling problem? What was what was the thing that finally got it straightened out for you? More riding?
Um, well, it was a mixture of working with a new coach and then also just trying to figure out the bike, like that was part of the problem too, was because I have really small hands, and so kind of like the soft spot with the clutch
Mm-hmm.
is that like I couldn't get it right, like it wouldn't engage, when I let it out to a certain point. So like when I needed to like let it out, I would kind of have to just dump it, to actually
Right. Yeah, like
engage. So, yeah, so I couldn't like feather it. So like I ended up always dumping it and popping a wheelie. So I always like pop a wheelie.
got you,
It's kind of like in order to keep it like revved,
Yeah.
you know, and then you want to like slowly let it go, but my hand is so small that when it finally goes, it's like I just dump it. So it was just like a mixture of that and also just being okay with having to dump it, and pop a slate wheelie and then get going. So that and just working with somebody else so I ended up working with Tebow down south with the asthma group.
Mm-hmm.
And so I broke down with them for a minute and just kind of work through things differently, with a different coach and a different set of people and a different atmosphere. And I think that kind of helped reset me so that when I came back, we looked at my equipment a little more, tried to fix it, and then just like, got me okay with like all the revving in front of me, all the people popping their own wheelies, me okay with popping my wheelie, and just like, let's just go, because it's at the start always.
It is. That's the word. That's turn one, man. Turn one is always the word.
Yeah. It's just like, you just gotta stand your ground. And it's scary when you're just starting for sure.
Yeah, you make talking about standing your ground. It took a while for me to realize that you do because I when I was riding early, not early on, but like I would always not want to be in the way of people. and that kind of thing, and feeling bad about that's like, no, I'm supposed to be in the way. You're supposed to go. So it took a while to get that and get that. Like, no, you got to go around me. And because it's when you were talking about going to different tracks and get a different perspective, it made me think of Loudon. I mean, Loudon is a wonderful place. It's a very family oriented, like most tracks, right? Yeah, like most tracks. But when the lights go out, it's cutthroat, like nobody's business.
Yeah.
So I feel you there about people around you and stuff like that. So now you got more comfortable, popping a wheelie and moving and stuff like that. I see that from on social media and stuff like that. You also started you're riding dirt as well. So, is it just because it was just bikes and something else to do? What led you to decide to say, okay, I'm gonna go also jump on a dirt bike and ride through the woods?
Well, so my dirt bike journey has been like after I bought my first street bike, so I bought that CB300. I thought it would be fun to just get myself a Christmas gift. So I bought myself a little like 125.
Uh-huh.
Like he's so fun. I love him. I never ride him because I live in the city, it's basically impossible. And I just am scared of him getting stolen nonstop because he might as well be like, the cutest little fluffy white dog, like somebody is going to snatch him.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Nice. And
But
So
Mhm.
is it, and this is something I've talked to people about, being in the city. And I'll go off on a little tangent. It would be nice if there were like places that dirt bikes and bikes can go in the city and ride around, so that way you don't have to ride them on the streets and worry about being in the way of people and stuff like that. But the riding that you have been doing on the dirt bike and stuff, does it? Have you noticed that it translate well in racing? Are you more comfortable if the bike is moving around underneath you or anything like that?
Honestly, I haven't got enough time on the dirt bike for me to feel like it translates. But that was the goal when I got the dirt bike, because I know that a lot of people get really good and comfortable on a bike because they spend so much time on smaller bikes. Like a lot of the other racers have little dirt bikes that they turn into supermotos, or they tool around the parking lot. They get used to like skidding the rear out. Like that was something I had kind of been working on with, my friends down south, trying
Mhm.
to go out and skid out and just, do little things that you would do when, you were like 16 and you were just goofing around to get
Right.
a better feel of a vehicle or like what your limits are. Just because I know for me, I have no frame of reference. So like everything I'm learning about bikes is literally what we're doing right at that moment.
Right. Right.
Um, so that was kind of the goal with getting the dirt bike, was just getting a better feel of what it's like to be in like a vehicle and being able to push it, but with like less stakes. But sadly, it's just I get to it when I can,
Right.
and it's one of those things where I'd like to do it more, but it is just difficult. It's free, but it's almost not as accessible in some
No,
ways.
you have to be connected, and if people have trails or places they can ride, it's very hush hush. It's just kind of like, no, we already have enough people. I've tried many times, and like you, I have a dirt bike as well, and I don't get as much seat time on it, and because it's just, I mean, even and I'm down in Florida now. And I'm trying to even just find places that I can go, and it's still like, okay, I'm going to have to trailer. It's an all day thing. It's not like I can just go in my backyard like some of the folks that live outside the city. They can just ride the electrical line paths and stuff like that and keep moving. You mentioned Kerry from Smith Cycle. And you are I have to bring this up. What has it been like for you as a female, as a woman, getting into motorcycle riding and racing? I mean, it's been a few years for you, but what's that experience been like going to the track and stuff like that? um,
um, it's been great and crazy and hard all at the same time. I mean, there are benefits to being a girl, for sure. It's you get some more attention sometimes, and other times, it's tough because you are a girl, so people are like, I don't want to deal with that, or like, okay, like you do your thing, and like whatever,
right, right.
so it's hit or miss. um I am I I don't know how to say it. Like, it's just one of those things where it is what it is, Like, there aren't a lot of women, and it can be tough, but it's also interesting for sure, Like, I don't know. I don't really know how to explain it, It's tough, like, it's just one of those things, like, I don't know what it's like for guys, I just assume that it can be easier, it can be harder, but for me, like, I'm lucky to have made so many friends and have people be so open to me, and also, learned so much from people because I had no idea what I was doing. And now I have a little more idea of what I'm doing for sure, you know?
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. It's tough because like I want to think that like I'm able to do these things and be here because, people like me and, I have potential and not just because, I'm a girl. I know that there is a lot of support and people do want more women in the sport, but I don't want to just be a yes because I am a girl.
Right,
Do you know what I'm
right.
saying?
I definitely do know what you're saying. Um, now, you talked in the beginning about how you kind of just, you don't know what you don't know until you know. What would you tell your, yourself 4 years ago when you were deciding to go pursue your motorcycle license and stuff like that? Did you, I would did. Back then, you imagine that you'd be doing what you're doing right now, or you were just kind of like, "Hi, I'll probably just ride every once in a while." And would you give yourself any different advice than the path you've taken?
Oh man. So I mean, I did get to where I am now because I said yes to a lot of opportunities and a lot of things. I think that that's one thing I learned from this whole thing that, say yes when people offer you something. It's one of those funny things where I have this conversation with people a lot of times. They're like, oh, I offered this person this thing because, they said they liked it. And I'm like, hit me up and I'll get you one or something like that. And they're like, nobody ever hits me up for anything.
Right,
And,
right.
so are like, oh, well, they said they wanted to hang out, but I'm still waiting for them to call me to hang out. And I'm like, bitch, call them to hang out.
Right, right, right,
You need to follow up.
right.
So I'd say for me, one of those things is like, somebody will say, oh, there's a 2-day penguin school. I'm not going to have that person sign me up for it. I'm going to wait for them to do this. So I went and I signed myself up for it.
Right.
One of those things where, when somebody offers you something, say yes, but then follow up or follow through, like it's if somebody's going to offer you something, don't expect them to like do all the legwork for you too. You gotta be there. So that's how like I did penguin school. That's how I met my pit mates. That's how I went down to Miami to Homestead. And when I was at Homestead, that's where I met Tebow, who then invited me over to, New Mexico to race with them.
Right.
That's where I learned new skills and trained and got over my yips. Like you got to say yes to these things, when they show up. And that's kind of like what I accidentally did, and then benefited so greatly from. And then the other thing is, when I got into motorcycles, one of my girlfriends was like, prepare to become broke. And I just laughed. I was like, sure, yeah, right. Okay, cool. Sure. No big deal. Like,
Right.
this bike was $1,000, whatever.
Right.
And then racing. And then I was like, oh, okay, I see.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
It's a
because
bit.
like I,
Go ahead.
yeah, because I legitimately bought my truck just for racing. Like I bought a whole car for my motorcycle. It's like, what the hell?
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, I can listen. Yeah, it's something that we don't talk about in the motorcycle world, how expensive things are. And the other part of that is also accident. But yeah, the cost part of it, let's talk about that a little bit. Because you really, when you first start out, in my case, I didn't know. I did a couple of rounds, and next year I did a couple of rounds, and still feeling myself out and stuff like that. And then I decided to do it. And then you look at the cost, and it's all great if nothing goes wrong. You know what I mean? But then as soon as something goes wrong, you realize how expensive it can be. Um, was that a deterrent at some point for you? Or is it more or less like, okay, I'll just, and I'll piggyback on also, injuries as well, because some people either look at their P&L, or maybe not P&L, but just their how much money they're spending, and they may go, all right, I'm done racing, or they may get hurt and go, all right, I'm done racing. So is being broke and maybe being broken up as well deterred you from your 2-wheel life?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, as we talked about earlier, I basically took a sabbatical for this year just because, I got laid off from my main job and just couldn't afford to spend, the $500 every race if nothing went wrong, like that's like if things are good, you're still hawking up half $1,000, like that's not nothing. And then, so for me, I took a step back, and also, my last race before all that happened, I had my first ride on a larger bike on an R6, and I just got a little excited, and we were like slowly rolling, and there's two brake calipers instead of just one.
Oh, yeah.
And so, you stop a lot harder. So I ended up like undoing the bike a little and trying to like bring it back down. And I tried to stop again, because we were at the end of the raceway, there's no more to go. And yeah, I slammed down. I rolled like, which was forever. When you're rolling and then you have time to think about it.
Yeah.
It was long. I was rolling, and I was like, wow, I'm not stopping. Okay, all right, we're thinking about this one, So I'm like, okay, try to keep it together, So I rolled like maybe 8 rolls, and then stopped, and then I was like, okay, this hurts. Something hurts,
Yeah, mental check, and you're like, okay. And
like,
is that your worst crash?
I would say that would be my worst crash. I didn't get knocked out. I've been knocked out before, but this one I didn't get knocked out, but it definitely was the fastest. I think I was probably going like 140, 160, because it was at the end of like a straight, really long straight, not allowed in straight, and I just rolled and rolled and rolled. So it was a fast one, and then it just ate through my suit a little, like right in the little soft spot.
Mm-hmm.
So I got
the
a little
road rash.
Yeah, it's so weird. It kind of like took a little core out of me. It was like probably like six stitches, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was like a good one. They cleaned it out and they stitched me up. And then, I just decided to call it for that week. It was like.
At least that week.
Yeah, so we called it for that week, but it was already at the end of the season. It was already in September. So, that totally destroyed my suit. And, I was like, let's take a break. We've been going super hard, traveling everywhere. And, maybe it's not time.
Yeah, no, well, before we talk about what's been happening since the break, what was it like going from the 400 to the R6? Because the two characteristics, twin cylinder versus 4-cylinder, but then also obviously the horsepower.
Oh God, it was kind of a mess, honestly. Like, we didn't really set up the bike very well for me. Like, I couldn't even hit the shifter. Like,
Wow.
they had to hit the shifter for me because I was so short. Like, when one leg was on the other side, I couldn't hit the shifter with my other leg. So they had to.
Like Aaron.
So I was like, you can't stop me before we pit out. Like, we cannot stop. Like, you can't. I'm like,
yeah.
And then honestly, like the first time I went out, one of the Schrader valves unscrewed itself. So I got a flat, like while I was riding out, and pit in and tipped over, because it was kind of a mess of a round. I'm not going to lie.
All right. Well, you got to get that bike lowered.
Yeah, but I mean, the bike, it was crazy. It felt so good, like you're going so fast and you don't even know it. It definitely was just generally a lot bigger
Mm-hmm.
uh, than my 400. So it felt big, but not unwieldy,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's just a fat bike.
It's just a fatty. So, I mean, I think that maybe if I had more prep and things like that, and if my friends didn't have such like too much confidence in me, then maybe, things would have gone a little differently for sure.
Right.
But it was crazy to see the difference. Like the difference between bikes was insane. And honestly, like I don't need an R6. I really don't.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think it's interesting because I see things on I mean you probably as well on social media where people are telling people what's a good bike to start with, and you'll hear people say 600 and 1,000, and if you ride a 600 the right way, it's more bike than you need on the street. And I may get some flack for this. It's one thing to be on the highway, pinned open, straight. Like if that's to me that's not racing or riding with skills, right? Because anyone can just, I mean, in a car or anything, you can just pin the gas and go. It doesn't mean you know how to do anything else. So it's until you get onto the track is when you go, okay, yeah, I probably don't need all this right now. And the small bikes are really fun. And as so for me, I went from the SV 650, then I went to a R6, and then like I had a bad street accident, lacerated my spleen, so no spleen, and I got a screw in my wrist and stuff, and I didn't take much time off. Like once I was able to ride, like my accident was like in August of like 2018, and I was racing at Loudon the next round. And my and my hand wasn't healed at all. And so I rode really. I had to change my riding style just to ride. And by the time I was healthy, like I wasn't riding the bike right anymore and stuff like that. So I ended up going down to a KTM just to just fix things, learn how to ride, learn how to carry more corner speed and brake later and stuff like that. And like going down to that small bike made me so much quicker on my R6 when I went back to it. So, there's something to be said about just like mastering your skills on a small bike, because these are the things that you're going to learn. When you go to the big bike, you don't have to worry about that. You just got to worry about where you're going to brake and where you're going to turn in. that kind of.
Yeah.
That, go ahead.
No, it's true. Funny enough, like when I race down south, I borrow a 300 that they have, and actually riding the 300 really helped me with my body positioning. I'm definitely not perfect at all, but I got way more comfortable with putting my body further off the bike than I ever used to. I mean, I still struggle 100% with the idea of any part of my body rubbing against the ground. Like that's a huge like no, no.
Yeah, yeah. No, I feel you there.
But
Go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, this smaller definitely helps.
Nice. And so after injuries and being knocked out, tipping off at 100 and between 140, 160, all this within the span of like 5 years. Uh, and from this is it's pretty amazing actually. No license to license, getting a truck and using your truck to tow your bike around. Um, is this something you're going to continue doing? Going to track days and getting better. Do you find that for me, like I was in a band a long time ago, and that was a thing that made me realize, like, I could, if I put my mind to it, I can do whatever I want to do, kind of thing. So, you've, what do you? I don't know how you look at it, but just hearing it, it's like that's pretty cool, pretty dope. in the course of, it's not like you were like me. I was into, cars and racing cars. I got my license at like 16 and a half, and I was racing anything, old ladies, anything that looked like they wanted to race, I was racing in my car. So, I definitely love speed. So it was no doubt that I didn't like the speed, but like, how do you sum up where you are today? Are you going to continue riding? I'm pretty sure your friends must be like, yeah, it's pretty dope what you did. Do you look at it? Do you look at it that way?
Yeah, I do. I think it's cool. I also think it was stupid. It's like cool and stupid. It's so expensive. I mean, it was definitely wild for sure, because I had some friends that were like, go have fun. And then I had some friends that were like, you shouldn't be riding Loudon yet. Like, what's wrong with you? You know? But, I did it and it is what it is. And, I've learned good things and bad things. As for what it's going to be like when I can afford to race again, it's one of those things that I do struggle with, because it's hard to see the rest of your, friends and, quote unquote teammates like progressing while, you've had to sit on the sidelines. And, when I did that track day this year, just, to get it in because there was just a cheap one, it's like if you don't use it, you lose it. It's
Right,
true.
right, right, right.
know? So it was just kind of like crazy to be back on the track and be like, oh shit, I suck again. So it is tough. I do definitely want to get back on the track. As for racing, I just have to be I have to, of course, look at the funds and also just be realistic about what's important to me, like you said, like I am like I could be my worst enemy, if there's a chance I'm going to podium, I will screw it up somehow, and that's just been the story of my life. And it's one of those things. It's just like if I'm racing and I'm not winning, well, what's the point? If I'm always in my way. But also, is winning really important? Like when I got into racing, I didn't even really think about the winning part of it. It
Mm-hmm.
just felt like something really fun to do, track your progression. It's different from a track day, because like you can see your times, and like and that's just something that I like seeing. I like seeing myself get faster and progress. Um, so I'm not sure, I guess it'll just be if it'll just take time and money and see where I'm at if it's still something that I'm hungry for,
Right.
like I definitely am hungry to ride and get fast, but I don't know if podiuming is that valuable to me,
Yeah.
you know?
It. Well, yes, it is that valuable, and I know some people who have had on the show. Racing is that is it is, but there is life, right? Because when we try to think about what we want to do, we just think about all the good. And sometimes when we do things, like in the beginning, like 2015, I was full time and I did all 7 rounds. I was the fastest or novice, got bumped to amateur at Loudon and switched bikes, and things were going well. I was going faster and stuff, and then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, it crashed. Then I jacked up myself, and so there's a I think it's a life lesson in general. And I kind of touched on it earlier. In the moment, I didn't realize it. In those 4 years where I was finishing last place, it wasn't cool. I wasn't happy about it. But there was something in me that was just kind of like, oh, I can't walk away right now because I didn't. Yes, I know that it's not. I know that the trophies themselves are worthless. But the idea of walking away, and I know I'm better than this. That was like the hardest thing. It's like I know I'm better than this, and like and we see it with much better athletes than myself when they struggle at the high level. When I think like MotoGP riders who struggle for years, and you're like, what's wrong with them? And it is kind of like it is they're just on the world stage, but we all struggle with things, and so for me, it's like I'm glad I stuck with it and got over it, because if not, it would be something I would be looking back and every once in a while thinking like, man, I know I'm faster than that, but it just didn't happen, kind of thing. But I get what you're saying, like for where we are and what with club riding and racing that we're doing, at the end, the competitive nature of us is probably all the same, regardless of the level of athlete you are as a human being. That competitive side of you is just what it is, and it's something to always embrace. But the reality of it is that like we're not getting a paycheck from it, so the risk versus reward is a little different, and I think it's harder to balance when you're not trying to change your life situation. You're just really just trying to prove some personal goal to yourself, essentially, and so forth. So, but it is definitely stick with it, and hopefully your funds will get to where it is, and you'll get back out there and have the fun. And you talked about your competitive side a little bit. Were you as competitive as how you're feeling, or when you're racing, doing other things prior to that? Because again, as you said, your traditional lifestyle that you had, did you shock yourself to realize like, hey, I'm pretty competitive, or were you always competitive?
So so it's funny because I don't think of myself as being competitive with other people necessarily. I'm definitely very competitive with myself. Like for me, you can't say anything to hurt me because I've already said something way meaner to myself, like I'm here and I'm going to be mean to me because I expect way more from me. Um, it's part of me, but it's maybe also part of, the culture too, just like, always demanding excellence. So I've never actually competed in sports or anything like that. I don't come from that background either. Went to art school, I'm a designer, so I don't really watch sports or do anything like that. So for racing, like this is my first foray into anything competitive. And, for me, I think really what it is it's me, it's like, I'm my own sabotager, like I'll want it too much. I'm too hungry
Right.
and I'll do something to mess it up, like it's stall or it's crash or, it'll be something or screwing up a turn because you just get so hungry. And, like and I'm so glad nobody can hear you over the engine, I think, like, because I will scream at myself in my helmet, like just the nastiest things,
Almost.
being like,
Oh yeah, I'm
you
always
know,
talking
you
to myself, always in the helmet, always go go go
know,
go go go.
or you're just like screaming, and then you can always tell what they're thinking, even though you have a full face helmet on. Everyone's just like, "Oh shit, that's bad," you know. So yeah, that's definitely been me. So I mean, it's not that I don't think that podium is worth it necessarily, but I think that there's just a point where how much pain and suffering versus like getting what you want, and is it possible, I know that for me, sorry, you gonna say?
I was gonna say, to get what you is it possible to get what you want without pain and suffering?
Yeah, which I don't there it isn't, like part of me is like hungry for it because I'm like, wow, like I'm here, I'm doing it. I might as well like try to get it. But then the other part of me is like, does it really matter if I have like a trophy or a podium, Because like it's not going to dictate my value or worth, Like when I'm walking down the street, people aren't going to be like, oh yeah, she just got third place in, this last race. And, you know, like it's not really that important, So for me, I want to try to I'm still trying to work through it, because it's
Yeah.
still so new to me, but I'm trying to be healthy about it,
Right, right, right.
Like racing is tough, It's like there's no tears, you crash, nobody is, there saying, "Oh, poor baby." It's just like, "All right, what did you do wrong? Don't do it again."
Yeah.
So it's like it's not a soft sport, it's one of the hardest places to be. No tears, no boo-hoos,
Right.
so, I'm trying to just like be healthy about it for me. And just especially because, this is not where I come from, so it's just a whole different vibe for me.
Right. And I think I love talking about motorcycles. I could probably go on and on, but I have a couple more questions before I let you go. Um,
Sure.
what do your parents and your family think about this? What you've been doing?
Um, so only my brother knows.
Okay.
And he thinks it's cool, because he used to ride back in the day. Because one of my uncles taught him, and he doesn't ride anymore just because his wife now is, not into it. She's got the collar,
I don't know. I hear about those callers though.
I mean, I don't know either. So, he's happy for me that, I'm finally going after the things that I didn't have access to when I was young. Just because, I wasn't given those. And then I think also he might be like a little jealous too, because, he's a wife and,
You might have to
day
tell him you
job.
need a pit crew and see if he can come out.
I've invited him before, but it's the wife.
Right, right.
Um, yeah, as for the rest of the family, like I'm just not super tight with my family,
Okay.
um like I said, they weren't super supportive of me in general, growing up. Like I didn't ever get a license, like there wasn't that support, like go get your license and go do this and go do that, So I feel like a lot of me saying yes and being open to trying new things is because I just didn't have access or support to that when I was young.
Right.
Um, so a lot of these opportunities I've had to create for myself, or if they do show up, I say yes to just because, like, who's going to help you? Not nobody,
Yeah, no, I do know. Listen, my mom, when I went to her as a teenager saying I wanted a dirt bike, she was like, "You gonna kill yourself?" No. That was it. And so you do have to do that. You'd mentioned like the trophy and the winning. Um, I think of a poem by Charles Bukowski, Bluebird, and he's talking about he has a bluebird inside of him, and it wants to come out, it wants to see the sun, it wants to see all these things, but he's saying he's tough and he's hard, so he doesn't let it out, and but he's like every once in a while I let it out, and it's like it's like yeah, no one sees the trophies, but every once in a while you can look at them and just be like, yo, I did that. So it's I for to me, the obstacles in the way for us to get over them when we get over them, especially I can only speak for myself. I always think things are always harder to do than they actually are before I do them. For me, it's just kind of like it's something about feels good about accomplishing things and getting past those obstacles because a lot of us allow things to get in our way, and so these little trophies, these little wins, we don't have to put them outside for everybody to see, but it's nice to look up and see them every once in a while and feel good about what you have done because not a lot of people are doing that stuff, and I don't know how many people are going to decide to say, hey, I don't have a license. I don't know how to drive. I don't know how to do all these things, but I'm gonna go do and that's pretty dope. And so I really appreciate this conversation. Can you tell folks how they can connect with you on social media and stuff like that, and all that fun stuff?
Yeah, sure. I'm mainly on Instagram, so you can find me at WXTWO. And that's kind of where most of my racing stuff is. My portfolio for my design work is also there too. So that's also my other stuff. And then I also love rock climbing as well. So there's a little bit of that mixed in there as well. But that's the best way to find me. So there's links to everything there. And that's how you can get at me.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you for coming on tonight. My name is Rex 45. I've had the pleasure to talk to Wei Lin. This is the B4evaKool Podcast. Peace.